Hello. Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back. This is our third day of the Arua Conference, the biannual conference 2025. I would like to welcome you all for this third and final session we have with you here today. Over the past few days, we've been discussing about research, innovation, and exploring how AI can be integrated in institutions of higher learning to support the economic development of our continent. In a special way, I would like to also welcome you back from the Ndere Culture Center. I hope you had a wonderful experience with the cultures of Uganda. Yes? Yeah, I believe so. And to also hope that we can see some cultures from you as well. So I would like to see if we have our South Africans in the house. Yes. But surprise, I thought borders on the African continent are expected everywhere. But to my surprise, they don't even know how to sit on them. Yeah, but you're most welcome. We have Kenyans already in the house. Kenyans are not yet here. Something special about Kenyans, their taxis are custom made. Each driver has their own brand or vehicle if you've been to Nairobi. But ladies and gentlemen, you're most welcome. I know we have many people from Ghana. Yes. Yes, they're around. Yes, you're most welcome. You're most welcome. Good to have you. Ladies and gentlemen, to kick off our discussion today, we're going to have our 5th keynote address, and this will also be followed by the 6th keynote address immediately with no intervention. So immediately after the 5th keynote address, this will be given by Darlington Akogo, the founder and CEO of minoHealth AI Labs. The topic, harnessing the developments in the health sector for improved health delivery. Ladies and gentlemen, let's join our hands and welcome Mr. Darlington Akogo.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad, we are still alive. It's been an interesting set of days. So I'm going to talk about our mission working towards artificial general intelligence for healthcare and biology. I think we've spoken a lot about AI in the last couple of days, but how many people here, show by hands, are aware or familiar with the term artificial general intelligence? Okay, a few hands. Okay. So AI, we all know what AI is, right? So there's human intelligence, or there are different attributes of human intelligence, and you want to digitize it. Essentially, that is AI. But the interesting distinction with AGI, or artificial general intelligence, is that we want to be able to build a single AI system that can match human intelligence, possibly across board. So a good benchmark we use within our AI lab is that you want to create a digital remote worker. So everything that someone can do remotely, join Zoom meetings, Slack meetings, ideate, create solutions, whatever it is. So no longer LLMs as they exist as chatbots. You ask them one question, they respond. But this is a remote worker. They do everything. That is the goal of AGI. So for us at minoHealth AI Labs, our goal was we wanted to build AGI, but for healthcare and biology. So what does that mean? We essentially wanted a single AI system that can eventually perform every single task that is performed within a hospital and then also within a biolab. So when we started, the way we went about this was instead of taking one task, collecting data, and then training an AI system on it, we took data across all these different tasks that you have here. So you have radiology, oncology, pharmacology, genomics, and the list goes on and on. Different modalities. So you have images, genomics data, you have lab data, text, medical reports, audio, video even, and then you throw it all at a single AI system and see what you get at the end. What we ended up getting was basically an AI system called Moremi that was able to do every single thing listed there and even way more. But we realized that healthcare is heavily intertwined with what happens within the biolabs, right? So we didn't want the AI system to be only good at clinical practice, but even what happens in the biolab. And then we wanted to see if you train an AI system on both healthcare and biology, what do you end up with? So within the same AI system, Moremi AI, we managed to get the AI system to be able to do all these different things in biology. So the same AI system is capable of designing novel drugs. So talking about small molecules all the way to different therapeutic agents. So everything from monoclonal antibodies, peptides, and the list goes on and on. It's able to estimate drug toxicity, and we've leveraged this to then work on essentially potential new drugs for several diseases. So we're talking about HIV, malaria, breast cancer, and several other diseases. One of the key things that we were able to get the AI system to do is report generation, right? There's been a lot of use cases in radiology where people train AI systems to, for example, interpret X-rays. But having spent, I'm coming in from the AI side, I'm a technologist, but I've been working in healthcare for about 8 years, heading to 10 years now. One thing I've realized is that a lot of the use cases, it makes sense from a research demo angle, but in clinical practice, it actually does not reduce the amount of workload on clinicians. And there are a few papers that are showing this. The reason being that if you give an X-ray to an AI system and the AI system tells you cardiomegaly and pleural effusion, that's not exactly what a radiologist does. A radiologist writes medical reports. So after you give them all that, they still need to write medical reports. So you haven't really saved time. So what we did was that we wanted the AI system to be able to draft that medical report. And that's exactly what we end up. So if you see on the screen on the left side, no. Well, it's your left side. So the AI, you see the X-ray, we pass the X-ray to the AI system. And then on the right side, the AI system is able to draft a medical report. There's a lot of nuances also involved in this, right? So it's also not as simple as just saying cardiomegaly. So if you take, for example, it takes lines and tubes, there are no lines and tubes. Then it looks at the lungs and the pleura. So there is a large, dense opacification nearly completely obscuring the left hemithorax, and then it goes on explaining a lot of details what is happening. It's very complex to go from, because we also built models where you go from X-ray, so classification, object detection, we've done that. Going from that to an AI system that does this is very difficult, but we realize that it actually reduces the workload on radiologists, because then they can go from this report, edit it, what they don't agree with the AI system, they change it or remove it, and then they have their final report. This is another example with a mammogram. So in this case, we still pass in the mammogram, and it's not as easy as, or the AI system wouldn't just see malignant tumor present or breast cancer present, right? It goes into the nuances. So it's looking at masses, calcifications, where are they located, what is the impression, Birat categorization, what is the conclusion, what is the recommendation, all of that. The other thing is that we wanted the AI system to be good at a lot of tasks around medications, so prescriptions. And so we fed it basically every approved drug by regulators like FDA, US, and the AI system gained all that knowledge. So you can ask it, for example, what is a substitute available for Curastel, and it will give you different substitutes, which is a real use case because sometimes the most ideal gold standard drug is not available in a setting, and you have a patient. So what do you recommend? The AI system will basically sift through all its knowledge of medications and tell you what are some substitutes. So in this case, you have Telosides, Telmidax, all as substitutes. Then you can also ask it what are potential side effects of this drug, and the AI system will tell you the side effects. So nausea, taste change, diarrhea, and the list goes on. Then you ask it to give you a description of the drug. So as part of this, we actually ran a pilot in Nigeria with a pharma startup where we gave patients. So what their situation was, they had patients that they would validate and give drugs to ensure that, you know, they are not buying counterfeit drugs. But when the patients went home, they had several questions. You know, they would ask, am I supposed to take twice, 3 times, 2 tablets 3 times in a day, or am I supposed to take 3 tablets 2 times in a day? They've forgotten the prescription. Or, you know, I woke up and I'm experiencing a lot of itching. Is it related to the drug? Should I keep taking it? So a number of those things, we let the AI system be able to answer it over WhatsApp. So basically, we created a WhatsApp bot where they can ask those questions and get rapid answers. But of course, you want to make it very clear that the AI system is not attempting to substitute what clinicians do. So when someone asks questions that are they have serious implications, the AI system will redirect them to speak to a doctor. But if it's simple information that they need to know about, the AI system will retrieve it and provide that to them. The other thing is that we ensure that the AI system was able to interpret ECG readings. So in this case, you pass it the ECG recordings, and then the AI system is able to come up with a diagnosis on what is affecting the patient. The other thing is also chemical pathology. So we can take lab test data, pass it to the AI system, have it analyze that, and tell you different things, including differential diagnosis. So based on different recordings and readings of the patient, what are potential diagnoses, what are potential treatment options that are available. Cytology is also another one. So having the AI system be able to analyze samples, especially towards the detection of cervical cancer, is one of the use cases we found very important. So the thing about doing this kind of AI training is that you are not very much guaranteed what you get at the end of the day, right? So you threw a bunch of, it's like alchemy, right? You threw a bunch of data at the AI system. Sometimes the things you think the AI will be good at, it won't be good at it. And sometimes some of the things you didn't directly train it at, it actually becomes good at it. So genomics, yes, we had some samples in there, but they were not enough and we didn't have much expectation. But to our surprise, basically you can pass in genomic data for a patient in addition with, you know, data from their health record, and the AI system will come up with a comprehensive genomic analysis report for the patient. So in this case, it's looking at the fact that they have some mutations, and those mutations combined with family history predisposes them to certain types of cancers. And based on that, the recommendations on what they need to do, lifestyle changes, what kind of annual testing they should be doing to ensure that they reduce their chances of developing such cancers. Yeah, so we're able to diagnose, we're able to screen for breast cancer using mammograms, but not just mammograms. We can also do it with ultrasound, or we can just also analyze biopsy readings. So the data from biopsy, you can pass it to the AI system and ask it that, what is the analysis of this? In some instances, it's not just diagnosing breast cancer, it's also predicting or coming up with a risk profile for a patient for developing breast cancer. So in this case, you are looking at different attributes connected to a patient and whether that increases or reduces their risk of developing breast cancer. So when we started, we started minoHealth AI Labs 2016, 2017. For the most part, we're focused on clinical works. But then when we got to this part, we've done some biology stuff. Some people on our team have done drug discovery and all of that. But we realized that what we're interested in was this end-to-end pipeline. We wanted an AI system to have impact across healthcare. So you are helping diagnose diseases, come up with prescriptions and all of that, but also help to design new drugs. And once we fed the AI system with a lot of biology data, we were quite shocked about what we ended up getting. We did not directly train the AI system to be able to design drugs. That was not our task. We gave it data from biobank and all of that, but to our surprise, it was able to do exactly that. So it's able to design novel proteins. So this is connected to things like antibodies. And then from the antibodies, you can get vaccines and all of that. So we then partnered with a number of labs to further explore this. Currently, we have, and the good thing about the AI system is that it's a language model. Probably I should have mentioned that part. But it's a in this case, a multimodal language model, right? And so all this tasks that is complex, you can have the AI system do it by just speaking pure English. So in this case, you literally ask the AI system, I'm working in the field of malaria and I need a novel monoclonal antibody targeting AMA1-RUN2 complex. And then the AI system comes up with potential new antibody and then it validates it. So it does what you call high throughput screening. So what you are seeing here, it's a novel antibody that basically doesn't exist anywhere or prior to the AI system coming up with it, didn't exist anywhere in the world. And then the AI system designed this, and we partnered with WACBIP, which is under the University of Ghana, to then take this from in silico to wet lab. So on the left side, that is the novel antibody that the AI system designed. And on the right is the antibody docking with the antigen, which is basically saying the potential drug, in this case, the antibody, interacting with the part of the malaria parasite, and then having effects that are therapeutic. There's also another one we did for HIV. So you also have the antibody as well as the antigen. We've also done it for tuberculosis. And these are some additional ones for malaria as well as hepatitis C. Yes, then we also did this for small molecules, right? So the AI system, same way you just ask it that I want a drug or a small molecule targeting some specific disease. And then the AI system goes off and comes up with this. And these are the structures of the new drug that the AI system designed. Now, the thing about, maybe to also put this in a bit of context, there are potentially, so the different combinations of compounds that you could maybe create that might be drug-like, there are more possibilities than there are essentially atoms in the universe. Probably I should check that. I believe so. Yes. So yes, there are more possibilities, which is a very, very complex task. And people believe that, so there's a lot of hype around quantum computing because we believe that for you to be able to crack the domain of chemistry, you need quantum computers. But there's an argument to be made that if you build powerful enough AI systems on classical computers, you might not need quantum because what you need is in the space of chemicals, right? You need a system that basically has strong pattern understanding and can go through that space and select things. So you don't need to go through it one by one by one. That is basically going to be impossible. And AI repeatedly does this. If you look at AlphaGo, same thing. AlphaGo, the number of possible board moves are more than there are atoms in the universe. So people are convinced that AI systems would never solve the game of Go. And what Google proved was that if you train an AI system, have it play the game of Go long enough, you don't have to look at all possible moves. Same thing with protein folding. So we know about AlphaFold winning the Nobel Prize. If you ask me, the Nobel Prize should have been given to AlphaFold, not to the scientists, because the task was that the Nobel Prize was for solving protein folding. The scientists did not solve protein folding. The AI system solved it, but that's a different conversation. I think maybe in 10 years, we'll get to a point where we might be comfortable awarding Nobel Prizes to AI systems, because I think AI systems are going to start solving some big unsolved problems in science. And, you know, you could give it to the AI scientists that built it, but maybe the AI systems will start demanding appropriate credits. But so what happens is that if an AI system comes up with a potential drug, it doesn't just stop there. In this case, there are different metrics that you want the AI system to benchmark this potential new drugs against and then see how good they are. So with Moremi, we use about 90 metrics if it's for small molecules, and this is checking for things like toxicity. Broadly, they are called the ADMET properties. So you want the AI system to be able to do this. So it can come up with 1,000 different potential drugs, 1 million different potential drugs, run through all this high throughput screening, and then give you the most promising one. So the goal here is that what you end up moving into the wet lab process is the most promising versions of the drug. So you end up saving a lot of time and a lot of cost. Yeah. The other thing is that we wanted the AI system to be good at predicting clinical trials, right? It's one thing to have an AI system that is designing drugs at the in silico stage, but if you ask it, what are the likelihood of this drug making it past the preclinical and clinical trial, let the AI system leverage its vast knowledge of, several millions of studies that have been conducted on different drugs, and then see the similarities and make inferences based on that. So we realized that the AI system was able to do this. So you give it a new drug and you ask it that, what is the likelihood of this drug making it past phase 1 trial? And so it's going to look at the similarities between this drug, other drugs, and then say, okay, if this drug made it past based on this property and this property, or several drugs that belong to this group or this class tend to be successful, there's a high chance that this will be successful. In case, so the context in drug design is this: it can take up to 14 years and cost up to $4 billion to make a single new drug. So the goal with leveraging AI or AGI for biology and drug design is that we could probably slash that. Even if you slash that by half and reduce the time by half, it means that we could save several lives, and AI offers tremendous opportunities here. So you see it do it for phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials. Now, the thing, we created this first version of the AI system. Then we were interested in creating what we call a co-researcher. By this, we wanted the AI system to be able to reason and then perform tasks for you. So look at it as a research assistant. There's a lot of work that, you have to do as researchers. And you would end up having a research assistant help you with a number of them. If there are, how many biologists or anyone within the space of biomedical sciences do we have in the room? Show by hands. Okay, so one, yeah. So generally what happens is that the most experienced researchers within the space of biology, if you need to do anything that involves computational biology, even in some of our leading biolabs on the continent, it's very difficult to find people who are good with a number of these computational biology tools. So you need to go find some bioinformatics program, find some promising young person. There's one lab that we work with. There's basically like one really good computational biologist, and they drag this young gentleman across like 2 million project that he has to work on, right? The reason being that you have an idea, you want to validate it using computational biology tools. Why not have an AI system be that research assistant? So that's the goal of we created Moremi Co-Researcher. We want an AI system that you can just have talk to like a normal human. Well, it's not human, that's not what we are saying. But you can basically just speak natural language and say, look, I want you to go run blast analysis on this compound for me and show me the result. Or I want you to go perform molecular dynamic simulation. But we're starting with biology because that's the space that we've been working in a lot. But the goal is to go from that to then expanding across several sectors. So if you take physics, there's a lot of you have to do. We've also done this for epidemiology, actually. So disease modeling. Have the AIs and tell it, I want you to run an SEIR modeling based on this data and show me the result. And it does it for you. Or literature review. Tell the AI system that, look, I'm working on this. I want you to do a deep dive, find papers that are connected to this, and then generate a full report and send it to me. So I was talking about this literally just a week ago at KNUST, right? And then people asked me, what about hallucinations? Or at the same time, wouldn't this lead to laziness? Because if I can just tell the AI system, do this, then it means no one is going to do any work. I don't think that is true. Because if that was the case, it means that anytime we produce new researchers, old researchers stop being researchers, and that's just not the case. It's to some degree a non-dilutable scenario, which means that the more researchers, the more ideas that we can explore. But also, coming back to the question about hallucination, for this use case, you are not asking the AI system to use its brain to just do, like, to guess what blast analysis is. It's actually using the tool. So these are existing computational tools. The only difference is that instead of you learning how to use, let's say, 100 different computational tools that are in your field, the AI system already knows how to use all those tools. So if it generates the result, it's generating it directly from the tools. And even so, let's say literature review, it will provide you the citation. You still have to cross-check them. It's the equivalent of working with a research assistant. If your research assistant produces a lot of data, shares it with you, you don't go off of that and just publish it. You still need to review. And so this is an example of Moremi Co-Researcher. In this case, we asked the AI system, find scaffolds similar to this specific compound with predicted anti-tuberculosis activity. So if you read through it, you can see the AI system actually thinking through the problem. Say, okay, let's tackle this query. The user wants scaffold similar to smile strings, and then it comes up with a plan. So next is the smiles. So the second paragraph seems like a benzene, just so we are clear, I'm not a biologist. So these terms are way above my pay grade. But so it says it's a benzimidazole derivative. And so they are known to have various biological activities, including then it said next, I need to find similar scaffolds. So to use this, I'm going to use the enemy search tool, but I should first check if there's a way to get related compounds. Since the user wants scaffold similar to this, I should use a find smiles function. So it would actually spend time to think through the problem. And then it came up with a plan. So first use find smiles on enemy CX smiles file. Then for each of the retrieved scaffold, get the smiles, compile the results, but then it will review its plan. So it doesn't just go off and do whatever you ask it to do. So we usually call this reasoning. The AI system actually thinks through how do I solve this task and then goes ahead and does it. So Some of this can take minutes, some of it can take several hours. The AI system actually starts using the tools, and then you start getting the results. So I was able to find similar compounds and then show them that have TB activities that are, or anti-TB activities. So the AI system was able to successfully complete this task. And we've done this for several tasks across biology. We are now expanding it to other domains. So we'll be more than happy to collaborate with anyone here that would like to have an AI co-researcher. The goal here is that there's a lot of research being produced globally, right? If we want to catch up within Africa, similar to what we did with, mobile money, we leapfrog. We should be leapfrogging the research process itself. So imagine every researcher on the continent having an AI co-researcher, and that allows you to produce 2 times, 5 times more research than you produce. Imagine what the implication will be for the continent. That is our goal with Moremi co-researcher. All this work would not be possible but without a number of collaborators that we've had over the years that have allowed us to get the data, train the models, and then actually deploy them and implement them across the world. I think we are living in the most exciting time in human history. We are genuinely now creating systems that would very soon, by the estimates, basically it's in about 2, maximum 5 years, we would have AGI systems that match human intelligence across board. We don't fight it. We need to embrace it. We need to leverage it as researchers to accelerate the research that we do in itself. And I think Africa could actually be a key leader in this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Darlington, creating solutions, health solutions with AI. Another round of applause. We're so enlightened. Ladies and gentlemen, moving on to our second keynote address for today. Allow me invite Samantha Carter, a senior AI policy manager of JPAL. Let's give her a hand. And Samantha, you're welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. First, I just want to thank the Arua organizers, as well as the ACER team at UCT for the invitation and getting me here today. Very much appreciate the chance to get to know Uganda and to get to know all of you and the amazing work you're doing. Just a bit of introduction on JPAL. So we are the Abdul Latif Jameel Poverty Action Lab. We're a research center that was started at MIT in the US in 2003 and has since expanded to include over 1,000 researchers at over 125 universities in our network of people who share our mission to reduce poverty by ensuring that policy is informed by scientific evidence. So I lead our AI team here at JPAL at MIT. And the reason we care about AI at JPAL in this network of researchers is because there's a lot of hype around AI, as we know, and as we've heard about throughout the past couple of days. And much of that is very well deserved. AI is poised to be transformative and to really improve a lot of lives. But history shows us that new technologies and new capacities are rarely the full answer on their own when it comes to solving real challenges in the real world and trying to improve the lives of real people. So just a couple of examples. If anyone has heard of One Laptop Per Child, that is an initiative that was created at MIT. And the idea was to create a very cheap and scalable laptop that could be delivered to every student in the world at a cost of about $100 per child. There's a lot of enthusiasm. And when it was rolled out, it was tested with randomized evaluations to figure out how this actually affected learning. And what researchers learned is that it actually didn't change student learning at all. It wasn't integrated with pedagogy. Teachers weren't encouraged on how to use it within their classrooms. And students might have gotten more exposure to computers, but that actually detracted from their homework time. Another example comes from the health sector. So some of our researchers worked with the government of Karnataka, which is a state in India, to roll out a kind of fingerprinting attendance system for people in primary health centers. So this is nurses as well as doctors. And the system worked quite well. It was integrated with the government systems. It theoretically allowed people to monitor attendance and reward attendance and penalize a failure to show up in the clinics. But what the researchers learned through an impact evaluation of this tool was that the doctors didn't, or the people monitoring the doctors didn't want to irritate the doctors. And so they would see low attendance, but they wouldn't do anything about it. And so the system didn't change anything in terms of the outcomes that it was designed to improve. And so what we think of at JPAL is kind of twofold. One, we want to use insights from research to help sift through the many possible applications of AI to really pick the ones that are most likely to make a difference based on what we know already can change the world and can reduce poverty or improve equity. We also want to conduct impact evaluations of new AI tools to help determine whether these innovations actually lead to the desired outcomes. And I've put a couple examples on the slide of some of these opportunities as well as some of these outcomes that we care about, but there's many more, and these are just a few illustrative examples. So I want to spend a few minutes talking about what we already know about reducing poverty and improving equity. So first, there's a couple of programs and approaches to reducing poverty that are consistently effective at improving lives across contexts. One is giving cash. Unconditional cash and humanitarian cash transfers are consistent ways to improve income, food security, and well-being, and imposing conditions like attendance at primary health centers or attendance in school can also achieve those more sector-focused outcomes in quite an effective way. Second, there's a proven approach called the ultra-poor graduation approach, which basically provides a bundle of support that's designed to help people start and grow micro enterprises, very, very poor people. And the set of things included in this bundle are a proven way to improve people's income, well-being, and food security and resilience. In places where there's lots of emergencies, so floods, droughts that affect livelihoods and food security, things like anticipatory action, so predicting when people might face an extreme weather event and actually intervening before the event takes place, is a cost-effective way to help people weather those storms, both metaphorically and literally. And when it comes to the classrooms, we know that delivering what we call targeted instruction or personalized learning based on meeting students at their current learning level is an effective way to help them catch up in primary school, rather than failing to make it through the curriculum for third grade and then not being able to catch up once they progress through the later grades. So these are all analog interventions, but all of them have potential applications of AI to make them easier to roll out, cheaper so that they can reach more people, and potentially more effective for the people that they do reach. So what do we think is actually the ways that AI can do that? We have basically identified 6 general channels that we think AI offers high potential to improve the world. One is on optimizing program targeting and needs prediction. So we actually heard about this in one of the parallel sessions, predicting floods in places where those are likely to affect many people's livelihoods, and then actually offering warnings to people about how to prepare or being able to act with cash transfers or other types of support in advance. Increasing access to information that is really context-specific and personalized. So I think we've heard quite a lot about farmers and smallholder farmers in particular who might lack access to extension services. We heard earlier this week that extension services are really hard to access for many of the people who are the poorest or the least connected. And so giving them opportunities to upload photos of their crops and see what's actually going on and what they might do in response is a very promising application. Maximizing the effectiveness of people who are frontline service providers. So this is people like extension workers or teachers or nurses, community health workers, basically helping them do their jobs more efficiently so that they have time to focus on the places where they really add value. Improving the efficiency of organizations as well. So making things work better on the back end so that government workers or people, and all of us actually, can focus their time on their comparative advantage rather than kind of routine administrative tasks like taking case notes or writing medical reports. Fifth, and this is one that we think is quite interesting, reducing bias. So obviously we know that without careful attention, AI systems themselves can be quite biased and kind of exacerbate the flaws that humans have. But AI systems can also be designed to correct for those flaws. And so designing systems that actually help people understand where they might be acting in a biased way, making decisions that are exacerbating those problems, can overall improve fairness. And finally, this is a time in our world where governments, more than ever, are struggling to have the resources to deliver the programs and services to their constituents that they need. And so figuring out how we can use AI to increase tax revenue is an exciting way that we think machine learning and AI can be used. So I want to give you a couple of examples of ways that we've already seen a few of these channels take place. So the first is on improving program targeting and needs prediction. In Togo, during COVID-19, the government wanted to deliver digital cash transfers to people who were experiencing poverty and many challenges that were exacerbated by the pandemic and related lockdowns. And they wanted to do this using all digitally because they wanted to minimize kind of contamination and the spread of the pathogen. But the social registry in Togo was quite outdated. And so it was difficult for the government to know where to send the cash transfers and who should be getting them. And some options they had were maybe geographic targeting, maybe just using that data because it was the best thing they had. But what they actually were able to do was to partner with researchers to do machine learning on satellite images of villages, as well as mobile phone data on transactions that people were making and the ways that they were buying and spending phone credit. And they actually used that to identify the poorest households and deliver the transfers where they were needed most. And so this approach, this machine learning approach, reduced exclusion errors by up to 20% compared to the alternatives that were available to the government. And it also avoided bias against women or minority groups. And by October of 2021, 1.6 million people had been enrolled in this program, with nearly 820,000 people benefiting from receiving cash transfers. So when it comes to maximizing the effectiveness of frontline service providers, I have an example from Brazil. And so if many of you I know are teachers, and I'm sure that much of your time is spent on actually grading the exams that you assign to your students, the exams and the assignments. And so in Brazil, this was a challenge that exacerbated inequality across public schools where students were able to access those for free, and private schools where the class sizes were much smaller and the students were generally better resourced. And so a social enterprise called Letras developed an AI-based platform that provided students with personalized feedback on essays that they used to prepare for the national exam that they would take at the end of secondary school. And they rolled it out in a randomized evaluation. And they found that the platform improved student writing scores, but the way that it did that was actually by freeing up teachers' time so that teachers could provide more personalized feedback to every student. So writing scores went up by 17 points, and the public-private test score gap shrank by about 10%. And this also meant that the students in these schools, they, relative to other students across the states of Brazil, so this chart shows the states of Brazil ranked by their performance on this standardized test that all students take at the end of secondary school. The students in the treatment group who got access to this platform were well above the average for their state, which is in the orange in the middle, and much further above the students who did not get access to the platform, who are in the red bar at the bottom. And again, those students were doing more poorly because they were in lower resource schools. Okay, so when it comes to boosting government resource mobilization, one of the ways that we think AI is most exciting is to fill information gaps on tax liabilities. So in Senegal, researchers worked with the government to do the first digital property census in the country. And what that means is instead of sending out individual tax collectors to go to every building and think about, okay, based on what it looks like, based on where it is, how much should it owe in property tax, we can actually use satellite imagery to answer those questions. So because this was kind of an untested solution, the researchers did a randomized evaluation of this approach to assessing tax liability. And they tested a version that was the standard. So tax collectors went out, collected the information. Satellite data only, so looking at the location and then the building itself, And then using kind of an algorithmic system that the tax collectors had to collect a set of characteristics, and then an algorithm would combine those characteristics with the satellite data to see if that kind of human in loop model was more effective. And what they found is that first, the human tax collectors were undervaluing all the properties that they assessed, but they would undervalue the most valuable properties more. So they were in a system where the larger and wealthier buildings were getting taxed much less as a proportion of what they should, versus the smaller buildings, which were theoretically owned by people with lower income. The rule-based system was good. It was better than the totally human discretion version. But the satellite version outperformed both of them because it avoided any human error in assessing the value of these properties. And so what we see from this is that using an algorithm, the satellite version can both improve equity and increase tax revenue. Okay. And then my last example for you is on reducing bias and ensuring fairness in programs. So this example comes to us from Mexico, where, like many countries, the labor court system has extreme backlogs. So people who are filing grievances against their employers have to wait a really long time, in many cases multiple years, without resolution in the court system. So researchers worked with the labor court system to train a machine learning model on a bunch of past cases. And for this, they had to actually digitize a bunch of paper cases, put them into a computer, train the model. And then what they did is provide people who are waiting for their case to be tried, they got personalized probabilities of what was likely to happen, as well as what they were expected to receive in terms of compensation. And they also provided pretrial mediation for the workers and the employers. And the impacts of this intervention were that settlement rates nearly doubled. So twice as many people said, I will figure this out without having to go through the court system, which of course helps reduce the backlog by quite a lot. And it also reduced lawyer-driven distortions. So in many cases, the lawyer that would be assigned there's a lot of heterogeneity. So some lawyers might not be as effective, and we want to make sure that everyone is getting a fair shot at the compensation that they're owed. And so this type of system improved fairness overall. Okay, so now turning to all of you, we wanted to give some advice to researchers on what to prioritize when you're out in the world and evaluating AI use cases as they reach real people. And the main point is that most of these questions remain unanswered. So if you are working on an AI tool that is rolling out in schools or with a government or in health centers, it's really important to be measuring its impact as it is rolled out with the people that it's actually meant to serve. So not just in the lab and not just in a small pilot, but actually with the end users. And as we do these evaluations and design them, two really important things to keep in mind. The most useful research, the things that are likely to actually get your research to change the world, will unpack what is driving the effect. So one example comes to us from Kenya, where researchers worked on providing an AI business mentor via WhatsApp to a bunch of micro-entrepreneurs. The reason is that micro-entrepreneurs in Kenya, they have a lot to do. Micro-entrepreneurs everywhere have a lot to do. And it's a lot of different things, and people will have different sets of skills among these different types of tasks. So kind of general business training is very unlikely to improve outcomes for the average person because every person needs something slightly different. We know that consulting services are really effective, but they're quite expensive and they're very hard to scale. And so AI offers an opportunity to expand access to that type of consulting on an individual basis at a lower cost and in an easier to scale way. And so researchers designed a WhatsApp-based AI assistant that was specifically developed to meet the needs of micro-entrepreneurs in Kenya. And they rolled it out. You can see it's very small, but this is an example of a chat log from this study where someone is asking what to do to increase their revenues. The AI mentor is giving them 5 specific ideas that they could try, and then someone can ask for more information about the one that they want to learn more about. And they did a randomized evaluation to see what are the impacts of this tool on people's business profit and revenue. And at first glance, we didn't actually see any impacts. So this is a chart showing the average impact. I've zoomed in on the impact for kind of the average entrepreneur, so people who got the tool versus the people who didn't. And we see there's no significant effect on their revenues or profits. So that's a bit concerning, but it's good to know that this tool is not having a transformative impact on average. But then when we disaggregate the entrepreneurs into people who were already performing quite well before the tool was rolled out versus people who were performing less well, we see that the high performers actually improved quite a lot in terms of their business performance as a result of this tool. And so we're left with this question, why is there a null impact here? Why did we see on average no effect? And we actually see that the lower skilled entrepreneurs, those who were performing worse at the beginning, actually got worse off when they were given access to the Gen AI tool. And so this is something that emphasizes both the importance of kind of looking at different groups of people using your tool, not just assuming that the small group of people who try it first will be representative of the average person who will use it when it gets rolled out, but also just the importance of trying to understand what is going on when we roll these things out, what's actually happening, and measuring impacts in a way that allows us to tell this story in a way that is realistic and credible. And if you want to learn more about how to do that, I would encourage folks to come to the 11:30 workshop here in this room, where my colleague will be diving into the details of how to design these types of evaluations. The second thing that we wanted to leave you with in terms of how you should be designing impact evaluations is thinking, and this is actually relevant outside of evaluations themselves, thinking about whether the AI solutions will work within existing systems and processes. So Darlington mentioned that clinicians, most of what they spend their time on is writing up case files. So can we design our AI solutions to solve a real problem for people in a way that can integrate with their real lives and work? So just an example to emphasize the importance of this, researchers worked with an Indian state government to design a machine learning tool that would improve tax compliance. And the way that this worked is that in this state, there was a value added tax, or it's called the goods and services tax in India. So firms would often create like fake suppliers, list those on their tax returns, and then request more tax deductions than they were eligible to receive. So this machine learning tool was designed to identify which firms in these tax submissions were fake, and then send the tax enforcement folks to assess whether those firms were actually real. So basically, improving the precision of how the tax enforcement authority was implementing its work. And so they learned that the machine learning tool was good at identifying the fake firms, but people didn't actually improve their tax collection at all. And that's because the enforcement against these beneficiary firms was very hard to do and very complicated. It required going across jurisdictions. And so there was no change in what actually happened in the real world. So this is just another an example to emphasize the fact that understanding how the whole system is going to work that you're trying to improve is a really important thing to think about before designing a tool and when evaluating it. And so just some key takeaways. We think it's quite important to design AI interventions based on what we already know we need to be improving for folks. Evaluate the algorithm to make sure that it's delivering on what you want it to deliver before you roll it out with real people. Then evaluate the impact of the application and understand what is driving the results. And for the things that we see are effective, figure out how to get those implemented at scale and share the results widely. So this type of venue is a very nice place to be doing those types of things. For the sake of time, I'll just flash up a few examples of ongoing research that we have. I won't talk through these in detail, but I'm happy to talk more with anyone who's interested in learning about these studies that we have going on in the region. And then I just want to again say a big thank you. And my email is on here, but I'll let people read these for a moment more. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Samantha, kindly request Darlington to also come up here. We're going to allow only 2 questions for only one. Well, wanted to ask one for Samantha and one for Darlington. Okay. Yes, let's give them a microphone. The lady was the first one up. Can you move around the microphone?
Thank you very much.
Oh,
My name is Nanaba Piam for University of Ghana. And thank you both for your fascinating talks. But my question is to Darlington. And it's fascinating work that you are doing in the area of AI and biomedical systems. Now, how do you ensure that the meaning you extract from the models, the biological or clinical data that you have, how do you ensure that it actually reflects a real human context? And I'm asking this, coming from the background as a linguist who is interested in how meaning and interpretation influences communication. Thank you.
thank you so much. We shall have another question. Yes, in black.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm Dr. Joy Odume from the University of Lagos, Nigeria. So my question is to the director of Moremi. I love the name, Queen Moremi. Yes. So the thing about drug prescriptions, I work in the Faculty of Pharmacy, Department of Pharmacognosy. So I've tried getting some information from Microsoft Copilot and Gemini, and I'm happy to see that it always says it can be incorrect, it's not accurate.
Yeah.
So that caution is always there. You said that it could prescribe drugs and give alternatives, and then the prescription, the quantity. I'm worried. I'm worried about that because, people are different. Every living thing, not even only humans, are different. So there are some people that maybe blood pressure, they are reducing with clocking. Doctors know that this is the dosage. But then over time, this person is putting in exercise, diet, and then they are reducing the dosage. So my question is, I hope you're involving medical practitioners with this. And then the thing of cancer, my research is on cancer, herbal medicines for cancer. Can it identify types of cancers? Breast cancer, there is hormone dependent and non-hormone dependent. So if it can do that, that would be brilliant. It's exceptional. Then herbal medicines, I'm so sorry. Okay, I'll meet him after, but this one,
Sure.
herbal medicines. Standardization is a problem. So if we can solve our problem of standardization, because in Africa, 80% of us are dependent on herbal medicines. And because of that standardization problem, people abuse and misuse herbal medicines. So please tell me more about that if you have done it.
All right, thank you so much. I'm going to allow 2 more questions for Samantha. Yes. The first 2 are for Darlington. So yes, the gentleman there and the lady at the back.
Thank you very much. Amazing presentation. I'm Sunday Adebisi from University of Lagos. I've listened to both sides. Very wonderful. What AI is doing and can do for us. But in the last 3 days, I've not seen us talking about AI and jobs. And I'm very, very interested in how it affects jobs and how it creates jobs. So when you look at from the area of medicine, what are the other jobs you think AI will be creating, will be enabling? And can we discuss those jobs that is going to kill? We've been shying away from this, and I think I'm not comfortable with it because that has been the space. I've traced some history of invention and technology innovation in the world. We'll be discussing that this afternoon anyway. But I want us from this platform for us to confidently talk about what it's going to do to jobs in medicine and informal sector. Now that you're trying to, bring it into the informal sector. So what is it going to do to border that we've been seeing in millions? how are we going to cater for border? And I think I want you to look at that from the informal sector perspective and from the health sector perspective. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please keep the questions precise. Introduce yourself, affiliation, and give us a question.
Okay, so my name is Immaculate from the University of Nairobi. My question is to Samantha. So you mentioned that you're trying to use AI to inspire micro businesses, yeah? So I did a research last year on finfluencers, seeing how they impact the financial decision-making traits of Africans, and it's a blob. Very few people trust them. So what is the assumption that AI is going to work? For health, we cannot bypass the doctors. For schools, we cannot bypass the teachers. What about for finance? Who are we bypassing? We need the trust aspect. If they cannot trust a finfluencer they know, how will they trust AI that has never done business before? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's start with Darlington.
Hello. Okay. So the first question about, maintaining that human connection. So maybe one of the things we did with the AI is that when you are signing up, we ask, are you a health seeker? So are you a patient? Are you a medical doctor? Are you a medical student? And the AI system's language changes depending on which of those roles you pick. So for example, if you're signing up as a health seeker and you ask it a medical question, it would avoid heavy jargons. It would rather be much more nuanced, right, to explain things. And it would ask a lot of questions. So if you say, I have a headache and my eyes are itching, wouldn't just say, okay, based on that, these are 2 million different things that could be wrong with you. That's what used to happen with WebMD. You wake up and you Google your symptoms and before nighttime you are dead. You are convinced, right? So it matters. That's the natural language. You don't want the AI system to start propagating this fear. So before it says that, it shows some empathy. Or sorry to hear you are not feeling well, you have a headache. Do you have any other symptoms? Are you vomiting? I ask you all those questions. And then based on that, there's also a limit. So connected to also the question about the AI system would never prescribe a medication to a patient. So a medical doctor can use it as an assistive tool to look at potential treatment options and then look at what drug should I use. But if a patient asks, he'll say, no, I don't do that. Now, if you wanted to give you medical education on different drugs that exist, it will do that. But once you tell it to prescribe, say, no, you need to see a doctor for the exact reasons that you are given. It's not as simple as saying that this drug is for hypertension and therefore everyone having hypertension should be taking it. There's so much complexity that goes in that a patient would never know the right questions or even have that data to provide to the AI system. So the AI system refrains from all of that. But if a medical doctor, for example, uploads a patient's health record, uploads this and says, hey, come up with a differential diagnosis for my patients or come up with treatment options, the AI system would do it as an assistant. So definitely, this also answers the question whether medics are involved. We definitely do not want to encourage a sense of people feeling that, oh, because an AI system has vast medical knowledge, I can just go and use it and skip the medical process. No, even we that build the AI tools, we wouldn't do that. And we've put in, you need to put in safety guardrails. So you need to know when the AI system, even though it has the knowledge, will refuse to do it. It will say that you are not a medical doctor. I should not be telling you this. You should go see a doctor. And that's the balance between capabilities and ethics or being responsible. It's very, very important as we keep building more and more powerful AI systems. And definitely standardization, I think there needs to be a lot more. But one of the things we do now is that if a medical doctor is using our AI system and it asks for treatment options, the AI system can actually reference the standard treatment guidelines within their country, right? So it localizes that information because the gold standard in Uganda might not be the gold standard in Ghana. And you need to put those contexts in place. But I think, yes, definitely within the medical field, we need to do more. I think in the herbal field, definitely we need to also do more. But once we have those standardization, the AI system can always use it as reference to guide its recommendations. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Now to you, over to you, Samantha.
Yeah. So I think the first question on jobs, I think, is quite an important one. And I think it's really an open question as to how AI is going to affect jobs generally. And it's better to think about it in the case of specific jobs and specific sectors. So what are the specific tasks that people are doing in various jobs across various sectors? And what are the capabilities that AI tools themselves? So not just the models, but the tools that are actually reaching the people. What are those capabilities? And how does that either augment or in some cases automate the tasks that people are doing? And then understanding how all of that plays into a particular job or kind of sector at large is going to be really important. And I think it's impossible to predict right now what the job market of 5 years from now looks like and what are the skills and tasks that will be required for that market, which makes it very hard to prepare people to enter the job market because we don't know what the skills are that they're going to need with a lot of precision. But as we have more evidence on how people are actually using AI systems and tools, we'll be able to predict better. I think in the informal sector, and related actually to the trust question as well, the most important thing to think about when trying to design an AI tool for any particular group of people is to understand what can AI do for them, right? And what are they likely to take up? So part of that is it solving a real problem and understanding for folks in the informal sector, like micro entrepreneurs running shops, like boda drivers, like people who just volunteer their time to tutor children in a village, we have to understand what are the things that make their life more difficult than it needs to be, and the ways that AI can make those things better. And then before we get to the stage of rolling out any tool at a large scale, or even doing an impact evaluation, what we recommend at JPAL is first spend a lot of time understanding, is the model performing well for the people that you want it to serve? So is it kind of picking up on local languages and local slang? Is it interacting with people with kind of the respect or the customs that they want to be interacting with? And when it reaches them, is it actually changing behavior and beliefs? So are people interacting with the tools in a way that indicates that they trust them? Are they asking follow-up questions? Are they coming back? And if you see that they're kind of they try it once and then they never come back to the platform again, that's probably a sign that it's not helping them in a way that is useful. So before rolling anything out, I think that trust point and that utilization point is really important to be measuring. And I would encourage everyone to be thinking about that. I'm happy to talk about it more now or at the workshop at 11:30.
All right. Thank you so much, Samantha, and thank you so much, Darlington. Let's give them a round of applause. You can take your seats. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, going on to our next session, we are going to have our first roundtable discussion, and that will be the third of this Arua conference. Under the topic, collaboration of networks, engaging international collaborative networks for research and innovation. So allow me invite our moderator for the session. A photo moment. Okay. Yes. Okay. Kindly, the photographers, let's make this quick. And then in the middle. All right. As they're taking the photo, let me introduce to you a professor from the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, University of Ghana. He has also served as the Secretary General of the African Research Universities Alliance, ARUA, and he has also been the Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, let's join our hands in welcoming Professor Ernest Aryeetey, who is going to be the moderator of our next session under the topic Collaboration of Networks, Engaging International Collaborative Networks for Research and Innovation. You're most welcome, Professor.
Thank you very, very much, MC. I'm very happy to moderate this session where we'll be looking at the role of networks in how we pursue research and innovation. We're very pleased to welcome into the session quite a number of distinguished individuals who have been very key in developing these networks that we are interested in. We have Prof. Jenny Dixon from Universitas 21, who will be joining us remotely. And then we have Professor Jan Palmwosky from the Guild of European Research Intensive Universities, Professor Peter Lennie from the Worldwide Universities Network, and then Professor Maashutha Samuel Tshehla, the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Stellenbosch University, and then finally Dr. Laurent Washuro from the African Union, where is the Minister Counselor, Science, Technology and Innovation for the European Union. Let me invite the panelists to join me up here. Thank you very much. So Jenny, I believe, is already online. Yeah. So what I propose to do today is to let our panelists share with us their experiences in the formation of these networks and in the engagement of other networks in pursuit of research and innovation, especially with respect to their experiences in Africa. As Aruwa, as you all know, was set up to be a network of research universities in Africa. And Aruwa decided to use its structure, the pursuit of engagements with other networks, with other organizations. So Aruwa has had a very rich experience in this over the last 10 years. What we'll be doing, as we listen to each of the panelists, is to find out from them what makes their arrangement most effective in delivering the outcomes that we are looking for. I'll give each of them 5 minutes to talk about the organization and its pursuit of excellence. And then based on what they say, I'll ask very specific questions, or one to each person, to allow them to inform us, make us understand better what works and what doesn't work, what makes a network most effective as it pursues research and innovation in an excellent manner. So that's the approach we're going to use. Aruwa, as I've said, began as a network that was seeking to be the go-to place. Aruwa, in the early days, wanted to be the Russell Group for Africa. Aruwa learned how to work with other research networks. At the end of all of this discussion, I'll be able to tell you, based on what I've heard, whether we've been effective or not so effective in this pursuit. You have an order that has been presented in the program that's been given to you. And in that order, you see that Jenny was supposed to go first. But I think, considering the nature of things that various networks do, it will be more appropriate to let Laurent start for us. He will be giving us a general perspective of what the EU-AU relationship has been and how the networks like Aruwa and the Guild fit in there. And then after that, I'll call Jean to discuss what the Guild experience with Aruwa has been, and also with other networks that are relevant for this. Then I bring Jenny in. I remember very well when we began engaging with Jenny on the U21 front. And that experience is one that is worthy of discussion. And then we'll come down to WUN and then finally Stellenbosch University, which will be a very, very specific experience. So what do you, Lauren? Give us 5 minutes of your experience and how that reflects on what we seek to do here, what makes it effective, what does not work so well. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Is this working? Yes? Thank you. So thank you very much. And I would like to start by thanking Arua and Makerere University for hosting this fascinating event. I had the chance to be here from the very beginning and enjoy the presentation and all the discussion aside the meeting. So thank you. So first of all, thank you for inviting me on behalf of the European Union. I'm based in Addis Ababa. I work at the delegation of the European Union to African Union. And my job is to promote science, technology, innovation, cooperation between the two continents. So we have a very solid partnership between the EU and the AU. We're celebrating this year 25-year anniversary. There will be a summit next month in Luanda. And I hear that Professor Jan has been invited to speak there as part of the business forum. That will be a side event, which is important to make sure that our science innovation cooperation is positioned as a cornerstone of the overall partnership, not just a side event. So we have this partnership, political partnership, where heads of states meet, agree, develop common objectives. But 15 years ago, at the third summit in Tripoli, the heads of state agreed to launch a so-called high-level policy dialogue on science, technology, innovation, recognizing the importance of science innovation as a cornerstone of the overall partnership. So since then, we meet regularly with our colleagues from the African Union Commissions, but also member states representative. And we developed a number of things. Thematic partnerships. One of them is EDCDP, the large partnership on infectious disease, which actually is much broader now. We have now more than 20 years of cooperation, and we are currently involved in the third phase with a budget of 1.8 billion euro. This is money from the EU, but also money from member states, from the EU side, from the African side, as well as a number of charities and foundations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation chipping in. And for this, it's clear that we are about developing equitable partnerships. The agenda is set by both sides. Professor Guapang, until recently, was the chair of the Science Council, overlooking the direction from the scientific point of view, identifying the areas where we should focus our funding. And this has generated a number of networks and provided capacity building in sub-Saharan Africa. We're very proud of this. And this is a model that we want to develop further as we move. We have similar platform in other areas. Earlier at the conference, we heard from Forum about the FNSSA, which stands for Food, Nutrition, Security and Sustainable Agriculture. It's another area where we have more than 10 years experience, and I think a €1 billion investment so far in this area to support joint partnerships. We have a similar partnership in climate change and sustainable energy. And 2 years ago, the ministers of research and innovation for both sides decided to move forward and develop a so-called innovation agenda to move this science cooperation into developing more startup. We had a very brilliant presentation this morning, but we want more of this on both sides, working together, taking into account the possibilities from those huge two continents, which are very close to one another. So this is where we are. We are now preparing the next program where we are planning to put more funding for research. We are talking about a doubling of the funding at EU level, and we are talking also of nearly a doubling of our international instruments. So there is no reason to think that there will be less funding in the future. So I've discussed the kind of top-down approach, but a lot of our instruments are also bottom-up. So you don't need to hear what are the priorities set up by the top level I mentioned. It has also a possibility for developing bottom-up through the so-called cost actions, for instance, through the Marie-Skłodowska reaction. Those modalities are completely bottom-up. We also have, under the European Research Council, large funding possible for bringing together PIs on topics that they choose. And the current so-called synergy grants allow for 1 or 2 PIs to be outside Europe. And we have already examples of successful proposal. And we talk about 10 million grants for PIs. So it's major funding available on the basis of bottom-up research, which scientists like the most. And I guess I will stop here. This conference was on AI, and this is an area where we want to also intensify the cooperation. We had a topic in our last call on generative AI for Africa, and that has raised a lot of interest. So I know some people here have applied, and I wish them all the best in the evaluation, which is currently taking place. We also had last week a workshop on AI and science in the context of our EU cooperation, where we want to work together. I mean, we had a brilliant example this morning about how can this be done, and we want to learn from Africa. So it's not Europe giving lessons to Africa, it's the opposite. It's learning from the great things that are happening here in Africa together with European counterparts. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Laurent. And let me now turn to Jean to share with us a specific experience of the Guild in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernest. And thank you so much for inviting me to speak here in this really extraordinary, beautiful, but also historic venue. So I'm very grateful to you and to Makerere for hosting us. So when we were founded in 2016, the real added value of our network that our rectors wanted to see was the engagement with the EU. It seems to me any network really has to be very, very clear about the added value it provides, because any network has high transaction costs in terms of people spending time, spending money, spending resource in all kinds of ways to work together. And so the benefit always has to exceed that for any network really to work well. And it has to succeed in that across all levels, across the university leadership levels, but across all the other levels of persons it engages, administrative level or academic levels. And so in our case, it was the fact that the EU was, it has been, if you look at the last 25 years of EU funding that it provides, funding has effectively quadrupled. In that time. It's a staggering growth. And as Laurent said, it's set to increase again markedly with the next funding period. And so for our members, the EU provides around 15% of third-party funding, give and take, depending on the member. And that means it's not only about the amount of money, it's the quality of what it brings. It's the capacity to really work with the best researchers from across the continent, but also, as Laurent noted, worldwide. So we were very set on the EU. Africa was on nobody's mind when we created. And then a year later, a vice rector came up to me and said, actually, what do we do about Africa? I was like, okay, what do we do with Africa? And this was a time when you could see if there's any foreign relations beyond the EU that's going to be whose importance can only grow for us, it's got to be Africa. We immediately felt there was a real opportunity here to replace a very negative agenda that most people associated, most policymakers at that time associated with Africa, mainly around migration, to replace that with really positive connotations around science collaboration, the kinds of things that we could do together to address our common challenges. So then we started to work very closely with Arua. I think, Ernest, we had our first workshop together, I think, in 2018. And we developed a lot of ideas together in the policy space about how we really needed to change science relations in an equitable, long-term way through partnerships that focus on research excellence and at the same time that build capacity both in human resources, but also in terms of infrastructure. And we articulated this in a number of policy positions. And then in early 2020, or in late 2019, we had a shift. We had a new Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen. Within a week of her appointment, she went to Addis, her first foreign trip. So that signaled the importance of Africa. And the new Science Commissioner, we were the first network the new Science Commissioner and Research Commissioner met. And as we're walking out, she said, I know you're working in Africa. You better get a move on. This is going to be really important. It's really important to me. And so then we sort of accelerated our work, which we could only do because we had done so much work already. We published a number of position papers in the next couple of years, making our points. And we were delighted when these points were really reflected in our in the AU innovation agenda. All the key issues that we felt strongly about are there. So we're very supportive of this agenda. And then when it was published in 2022, we thought, well, okay, so we really need to put our money where our mouth is. And so then we started to conceptualize the creation of the clusters of research excellence, which are really and what makes them distinctive, I think, globally in the higher education landscape and in terms of internationalization, is that they come with a strong commitment of the university leaderships to support them in Europe and in Africa. But the leaderships have only set a frame that was very much determined by the AU innovation agenda in terms of the very broad thematic priorities. And then we asked our researchers to fill it with life, fill it with their ideas. And then these were bottom-up creations and bottom-up processes. So we are very, very confident that they went through a rigorous evaluation process. So we really, when you look at who's leading these, some of them are in the room. I think that the academic quality and the commitment of these researchers and the way they've begun these collaborations is absolutely extraordinary and has exceeded all of my expectations. It seems to me, when I think about the value of networks right now, so this has been a long process, but it seems to me there are two fundamental issues that we're now here to embrace together, and it gives us being in these networks, being in this collaboration, being really in partnership also with policymakers around where we go. It seems to me there are two fundamental questions that are now for us to address together. The first one is really how we drive this equitable agenda in a completely changed geopolitical context. And that is something the EU has to grapple with. That is something that our universities have to grapple with. And this is where I think the two networks of Peru and the Guild, other networks as well, where we can really bring up this information and the ideas that we can create into the policy domain and vice versa. And I think this is something where we all need to collaborate, because I don't think anybody really has the answer. And the second one is around how we together embrace technological change that is, of course, closely interwoven with these geopolitical shifts. AI here is the best example, but there are others. So how do we together embrace new strategies, new approaches towards AI? And I think there's a lot that we can learn from you. So I think that I'll certainly take Cape Town's idea of ensuring that everybody in the university is trained in AI. I'll certainly take that back to our member universities. But more broadly, I mean, there were calls here to think about an AU strategy around AI, and I'm delighted to know that our cluster in AI, our cluster of research excellence in AI, is really gearing up to present policy advice to the African Union. But I think when you look at what the EU does in terms of thinking of this in terms of a strategy around AI in science, a strategy around science funding for AI, but also then all the infrastructure around this and how you bring member states and the EU as a body together in infrastructures and approaches and strategies, I think there's a lot that we can also learn and work with together as we could potentially really benefit from ideas from across two continents.
Thank you very, very much, man. Let me now turn to Jenny, who is online with us, and will be discussing with us Universitas 21, one of the networks that Arua engaged more than 5 years ago, and I have developed several partnerships with institutions, the universities that are involved in the U21. Jenny, over to you.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be on this panel. I am sorry I cannot be with you in person, but it's really good to share some ideas with you all today. I think it's probably useful just to talk a little bit about the U21 network, and then come to talk about our engagement more broadly with Arua and Africa. So our network was set up in 1997, so it's been going for close on 30 years. It's a small network of 30 members from across 6 continents, and these universities you can describe them as being sort of leading research intensive universities. So we work on the basis of engaging with our members, particularly in issues in relation to global research and education. And we provide a raft of programs for staff and students and events where we bring our leaders together to, discuss critical issues. And of course, AI is one of those that's been on our agenda in the last couple of years. So it's important for us to add value to our members over and above what those universities are already engaged in. And when I came in as the provost in 2021, I was asked to develop a membership strategy for the network as we have limited places. And as I took my consultations, I became aware that there was an interest in engaging more in Africa. We have one partner, the University of Johannesburg. And the question was really how best to engage and accelerate our interest. So I recommended that we look at a network-to-network relationship to really commence this. Talked with Ernest and delighted that we were able to develop a memorandum of understanding between Arua and U21. So we launched a round for early career researchers. They needed to be both from Arua and U21, and those projects were completed this year. I think it's worth noting that we focused around 3 of the SDGs, and they all had a strong African focus, but engaging with U21 early career researchers in our member universities. I have to say they're absolutely fabulous. It's probably also worth noting that in terms of how we operate, the U21 it's a non-hierarchical network of universities, and so everyone works on an equal footing. And as I reflected for this conversation, it struck me that we in fact have a kind of a tiered, we have a model within models, and they work on a basis of equitable participation in relation to the way that we engage with our programs, our steering groups, and so on. And I'm very pleased to say that we have a number of African initiatives in our programs where we have students, for example, working on topics from NGOs in Africa in our micro internships. Our Global Citizens program that we run for students is very much looking at peer-to-peer learning. It's certainly not north to south. It's very much across the globe. So we are very interested in the whole issue of equitable partnerships. And in fact, next week in Johannesburg, we're bringing together all our global researchers and senior leaders, and we're having some very, I think, intense discussions around how do we ensure that we maintain and grow our equitable partnerships in our research collaborations. And I'm delighted that Johnny is going to be with us, and we'll be having these conversations with Arua. So I'm looking forward to listening to some further discussion this morning around what we can do more in terms of working with our African colleagues.
Thank you very, very much, Jenny. And I hope that U21 is getting out of this all that you expected from the beginning. Arua has been quite happy with the way things have run. Now I turn to Peter. You have quite a number of members who are also part of ARUA. Yeah, and that experience is one that many do not know beyond the universities. So we're very happy to hear from you what makes you very keen on your African partnership, what is making it work, and how you expect this to grow in the future.
Thank you, Ernest. And thank you for inviting me here, and good morning. Let me begin with two facts about WN that I think will make clear why equitable collaborations are so important to the network. The first is that we consist of 24 comprehensive research universities distributed on 6 continents, and that geographical diversity is really important. 4 of our member universities are also members of ARUA. So we have a natural and increasingly strong connection with what's going on in Africa. I'll talk briefly about a notable example of a successful collaboration that I think ticks all the boxes. But first, a little bit of background about the network that I think sets the context for why equitable international collaborations are so important to us. So start with the fact that major universities around the world have always been internationally engaged. So given that, what's the value of a network like WN? And I think that the key principle perhaps is that the key value, and perhaps the only value, stems from the different geographical, cultural, and legal contexts. That is, it's simply the diversity of the network itself that is a source of its strength. So that these different contexts, you can think of how individual universities sit here. Each member university has something special to bring to the network. It could be its geographical location and the resources that surround it, the natural resources that surround it. It could be cultural or legal distinctions, or in a number of cases, it can simply be the academic strength, the core academic strengths of the institution, driven by engaged and foresighted researchers. So think then about what happens when you have a network like this, where each university can bring something special, and then you bring them all together. The network then becomes a magnifier of the individual's strengths, and it's particularly valuable in dealing with research problems that are susceptible to comparative analysis. That is, research problems in which the geography or the culture or the particular context in which a university sits predisposes the researchers there to have particular views or background that they can bring to a collaboration. And you find that in there are many good examples of where these perspectives are really varied. Many of the best examples of where there's an opportunity for comparative analysis and where a network like WN can add value sit in public health. For example, think about obesity, which is a growing worldwide problem, but it occurs in contexts and both cultural and legal that make the management in different countries entirely different, hugely varied. There's a lot to be learned from how people do it in one place and how they do it in another. Perhaps the best example of this is COVID. Everybody mismanaged COVID in different ways. There's an enormous amount to be learned from the comparative analysis there. But the examples aren't confined to public health. You can think about the growing problems like water management or sustainable farming and so on. So the universe of problems in which WN believes the network can add value sit largely, in fact, within the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And what we believe about in our approach to them is that the network lubricates the sharing of expertise and the flow of information among partners. And it succeeds only when it delivers partnerships that draw fully in the strengths of and perspectives of the member universities. So establishing equitable collaborations is for us simply nothing. It's nothing more than intelligent self-interest. So I have an example that I'd like to tell you about. The WN Global Africa Group, I think, exemplifies what can be achieved through really well thought out collaborations that make the best use of what everybody can bring to the table. This group was established in 2015. It was a self-assembled group of researchers drawn from across the network who were interested in collaborations relevant to research in Africa and the development agenda. And their first project set out to examine the intersection of the UN Sustainable Development Goals and Africa's development agendas. And this resulted in an influential book, some of you may know about, called Africa and the Sustainable Development Goals, which was published by Springer in 2020. Now, what's distinctive about this group is that recognizing the history of inequitable collaborations between researchers in Africa and those outside, the group established very clear principles from the outset about how to guide its work. For example, each chapter in the book had to be co-conceived, not just authored, but conceived and co-authored with at least one of the co-authors based in an African university. There was an explicit emphasis on gender balance and the inclusion of postgraduate and early career researchers. So right out of the box, some of the impediments to equitable partnership were dealt with head on. Not all of them by any means, but a good number of them. And what was particularly important about this was that they were immediately put into practice. One of the interesting challenges in dealing with equitable partnerships is people talk a lot about them, and it's generally straightforward to identify the principles that should underlie them. It's very much harder to put them into practice and find out which are the most important. So our Global Africa Group succeeded because it drew explicit attention to the historical asymmetries and other barriers to equitable partnership, and it addressed them as the foundation of the project right from the get-go. So it's been a model for structuring other collaborations within the network, notably those supported through our small research grants program, which again, just for the reasons I outlined earlier, derive their power from their capacity to bring together people from diverse backgrounds. Now, touting the success of the Global Africa Group is not to say that the problems are solved. Real challenges remain. But with goodwill and effort, most impediments are surmountable. And a very important starting point I'd like to flag is that in many instances, we need to recognize that the challenges arise from ignorance and thoughtlessness rather than anything nefarious. And that's what I think gives the principal hope for progress here. Before I finish, I'd like briefly to talk about how networks like WN can be important for capacity building. We do it within the network, and we do it between our network and others. And there are two very obvious ways in which networks can add value here. One is by investing in skills building webinars for early career researchers. We began doing this during the pandemic, when the opportunities for developing collegial partnerships through attendance at international conferences and the like were completely extinguished. So we instituted a series of webinars that had a disciplinary focus that in some small way substituted for the kinds of networking opportunities people would have through attendance at conference. We later realized that we could add much more value by doing something different, which is by offering webinars on skills that weren't discipline specific, the so-called soft skills, such as building research team, how to approach grant writing, how to establish international collaborations, etc. And these have been hugely successful, and they provide an excellent path to sensitizing researchers on how to build equitable collaborations. We've also offered residential summer schools on special topics for PhD students, for example, successful ones on things like soil science and climate change, or on AI and robotics. And one of the very important things to note about these is especially in the context of this meeting, is that these kinds of initiatives are easily extended beyond the network. In fact, as part of WN's growing partnership with Arua, the Early Career Researchers program we run is open to all early career researchers at Arua member universities. And our PhD summer schools will be in the future as well. So that I think there's an enormous opportunity for networks to add value as long as they focus on the things that they can do well. That is, in our case, a laser-like focus on the advantage we derive from capitalizing on the diversity of the members. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you very, very much. Let me go to Sam, who will give us the experience from Stellenbosch University. I must say, in inviting Sam, that Stellenbosch is one of the most networked universities in Africa. And so I'll be very happy to see how that experience is playing out. Over to you, Sam.
Right. Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As the chairperson already alluded, I'll take the view of Stellenbosch University. I think in a nutshell, Stellenbosch University, founded in 1918, we are about 107 years old. We have over 35,000 students in 10 faculties, and then we've got 5 campuses. Our founding fathers were of Afrikaner origin. Historically, we used to offer all academic programs in Afrikaans. For the past 40 years, under the stewardship also of Professor de Villiers, we transformed the university, including our language policy. Currently, we are ranked top 300 on the QS rankings. Now, when coming to international collaborations and networks for research and innovation, there are 3 guiding principles that we follow. The first one is that any network we're involved in has to be, working towards the movement of academic staff, professional staff, and students. The second principle we follow is that partnership should promote the collaboration in terms of research, largely around joint postgraduate supervisions, joint research projects, and joint publications. The last one is mainly staff development. It must also enhance our staff development, especially when coming to the junior academic staff. I think, Chairperson, allow me to also highlight one point around the support staff, because from time to time when we come to these fora, we often forget our support staff. As a case in point, for instance, Stellenbosch University and Lund University, they work together on the support staff engagement. Both universities, they are all embedded within the towns in which they live. So I saw a very grand poster there. 1,000 went through these gates, and unfortunately with us, we don't have any gate, so we can lock any gate. In terms of safety and security of our staff and students and all these grand equipments that we own is a huge issue that from time to time we battle with. Now, we also have our own initiatives when coming to these partnerships. The in-house, when coming to staff development in particular, we've got African Doctoral Academy, which focus within the SADC region in building capacity amongst the academic staff, including specifically the junior staff. For instance, part of the short courses we offer within African Doctoral Academy is around developing the new the new PhD students. We all know that jumping that first hurdle of a research proposal, you just need somebody to hold a hand. That's what we do with the African Doctoral Academy. We also engage and we host the African Institute for Mathematical Sciences, which is called AIMS. I know it's replicated amongst many countries, including Rwanda, Senegal, Cameroon, and so on. This initiative actually is a feeder into our STEM field, especially when coming to PhDs. That's where we get students from, and the members that member universities that benefit from the University of Cape Town, Stellenbosch University ourselves, University of the Western Cape, and including the entire SADC region, sometimes rely on this, especially when coming to STEM field, because we know that's a difficult space to play in. And then, of course, we need to balance with the humanities, and then we are also a partner in the Partnership for Africa's Next Generation of Academics. We know that one of our training and scholarships focused on arts, humanities, social science amongst the member universities. Now, what do we do in Arua? When coming to data, we are a go-to guy in terms of training. We also help our members in Arua. Within Arua, again, Africa-Europe Cluster of Research Excellence, Professor Francesco, he will be giving a talk later on, and then I'll leave that thunder to him. Now, again, as I pointed out, with the stewardship of our previous boss, we further have joined initiatives with several universities across the globe. We have a network of about 60 universities in the UK, Europe, USA, our continent in Africa. Between our partnerships, the work we have done, we actually produce over 150 joint PhDs and over 1,000 publications. This actually shows that we are also playing a role within the global stage, and we are also, making our presence felt in a global stage when coming to research and development. Now, research for impact. We know the research is coming heavily from the academic staff in faculties, schools, and centers of excellence. If you go on Google and Google which ones are the best agricultural schools or faculties in the continent, you're going to find University of Stellenbosch and University of Pretoria. Why do we do that? We make sure that we also play in the space of sustainable development goals. SDG 1, no poverty, SDG 2, zero hunger. I think our faculty is basically looking heavily on food security within the continent, and we've got a vast network in that space. In the Faculty of Health Science, Medicine and Health Sciences, SDG 3, we house the Biomedical Research Institute and Center for Epidemic Response and Innovation. That's where actually we also, hide our VC so that we shouldn't go too far. Now, this center itself, it houses over 500 researchers and students across the globe. Now, let me give one or two examples of what comes of this out of these networks in 1 minute. The first one, our colleagues already pointed out around COVID-19. We know one of our researchers, Tulio, is the man that founded Omicron variant of COVID-19. I think that time we were banned from visiting any neighbor. The second point is around, as I indicated, food security issues. In South Africa, one of our professors, he found out that some of the sausages we were eating, there was a bit of undeclared items like donkey meat. Those are some of the examples that I can give, I think, within based on the time. Let me stop there, Chairperson. I could go further, but let me stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you. Many thanks. Let me come back to you, Lauren. You started this off. I'm trying to put you on the spot. But the EU satisfied with the growth of research and innovation in Africa through the initiative, the partnership that you mentioned? Is the EU satisfied with the amount of research being done in the region? The EU satisfied with the flow of resources, with the arrangements that are made by universities for managing these resources and so on?
is the EU, European Union, right? Not African Union. I think we are, because we would not engage more as we are now. I think we see Africa as the continent of the future, and when it comes to research, innovation, we are looking forward, and we have a long-term horizon in our cooperation. So obviously, there are things to be improved. Our program are sometimes seen as rather bureaucratic. We allow any proposal to be coordinated from Africa. This is possible. And unfortunately, when you look at the statistics, very few currently funded projects are coordinated from Africa. But most of those topics where we are targeting cooperation with Africa in the calls, where either it's mandatory to have at least 3 partners based in Africa or strongly encouraged, we see that we manage to bring a lot of partners, a lot of good partners, universities, maybe not enough startups like we've heard this morning. And this is something we also have struggling with in Europe, because startup companies, they need quick reactions, quick decision. And this is one of the objectives for the new program, to even shorten time to decision, time to money, as we call it. So hoping that startup companies will be more interesting. Our new commissioner, since the new 5-year commission has started, is a commissioner for startups, research and innovation. So we focus on startup, and this is an area where we see a lot of potential working with Africa, because of the youth, because of the creativity and the opportunities, and both for our startup to access a huge market in Africa, but also helping those successful startup from Africa come to Europe before they think going to Silicon Valley or China. So in these areas, we can do better, I think. And this is why we are developing this innovation agenda, to focus not just on the science cooperation, but also bring the private sector and particularly the startup companies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jan, one of the things that we sought to achieve, the partnership between Aruba and the Guild, was to grow the number of European researchers that were keen to work in Africa or work with Africans. Is there any sign that we are achieving that? Are we seeing, through the clusters and other arrangements that we put in place, are we seeing any growing interest from European researchers working in and on Africa?
So yes, we are. I mean, that's I can say that very clearly. So I think what our clusters did in the first instance was to bring out to the kind of university limelight those people who had worked on Africa for a long time. But our clusters also immediately developed new partnerships and allowed new partnerships to flourish, very often based on old partnerships or traditional partnerships. But then others came in straight and engaged with Africa in a way they've never done before. It's also very clear that when I think about the sort of stakeholder landscape of higher education in Brussels, a lot of people are looking at us, and a lot of people are quite jealous of what we do. And of course, I always keep saying to them, look, you can be part of this. And many are in the cluster. So of course, our clusters have far more partners outside Arua and the Guild than inside. So we have around 120 institutions involved now, which is fantastic. But I also see other networks, and they would really quite like to do something more formally in this space. And so I think that there is a lot of interest there. I think, as Sarah Salis put it, beautiful. I mean, I so much admire your speech yesterday, so thank you very much for this. And you put this so beautifully, because you are an example of the success that you can have at a very individual level with these clusters. And one of the things I'm so acutely conscious of is how we how we sustain the interest, how we ensure that we can properly support our researchers as they're looking to fill their basket, as you put it, with good fruit. And that comes with informing them about the changes that are always going on at the policy level. That involves about making sure people know how much impact we're having. So, for instance, we recently provided very, very extensive feedback detailing, across 25 very closely written pages on how to improve Erasmus Plus. No other network could do this because we were able to reach out to all the Arua universities, colleagues there, about some of the real barriers we and you face in international collaboration day by day, which the EU wasn't aware of. So those are the kinds of things that we can do. But of course, as we change, we are involved in a different funding landscape. How do we make sure that we keep up the momentum? And certainly what I can say, we just had a discussion amongst our vice chancellors last week at their General Assembly. And the topic that really drew most of their attention, more I have to say than topics like the European research area, was really the collaboration with Africa and how we make the space work. It's a real challenge to us, and it's something we are absolutely committed to, both at the management level, at the administrative level, but also at the research level.
Thank you very much. Jenny, I wanted to ask you, are there things that U21 sought to do in the past but couldn't do? And now with the partnership with Arua and with Africa, there's some gap that has been filled as a result of this release. Is there anything that you can cite as an example of an additionality to U21?
Oh, I think, yes. Well, certainly, I think the network.
We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You can?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that what we have been able to do with the relationship with Arua is to have a focus on Africa that we didn't have before. And that was particularly through the ECR grants. We are keen to go on and do more of that. I think it's really around having the will and commitment to do that, and also to understand what would be, I think, of value to Arua and its university members. And I think, given the fact that we are a small network, we don't have access to large-scale research funds. We can work in relatively small ways, but I do think there are really good opportunities to share our doctoral supervision expertise, and I'm hoping to have those conversations with Johnny next week, along with engaging Arua universities in some of our programs. So I think it's really a case of building on what we've started, and we've renewed our MOU with Arua for another 3 years, and I think it's really quite exciting in terms of what we'll be able to do going forward.
Thank you very much. Peter, you made the point that networks work best when they focus on the areas where they are strongest. One of the things I like about the WUN is the fact that you cover the entire globe that we have invested in North America, in Asia, in other places, and so on. What do you think all of these offer to Arua in terms of reaching out to other parts of the world? In terms of,
let me start by stating the obvious. The partners outside Africa are, just like Jenny noted for U21, are especially interested in Africa because everything's happening here, and the things are happening more rapidly here than anywhere else. They want part of the action. So it's selfish on the one hand, it's intelligent self-interest in the other, but it's also the case that you can get glorious partnerships if you do it well. One of the things we're working on now, which I think is particularly promising, is a new partnership with Arua to augment a new early career researcher fellowship program, that's being supported by the MasterCard Foundation and the Carnegie Corporation. Those of you who know about this will know that the part that is funded by these two entities it has got no explicit capacity building elements in it. And in a collaboration we're developing with Arua, WN is going to, as part of a pilot project, is going to provide for capacity building extension and initially focused on food security. And this will involve things like residential workshops on systems thinking and methodologies, impact for research communications, a writing workshop, and so on. And what of course is especially attractive is that it builds potentially long-lasting partnerships with the researchers of the future. That's really why everybody is at the table here. Getting the competition, the global competition for talent is fierce, and everybody wants access to the best talent, a great deal of which resides here.
Thank you very much, Peter. Sam, my last question is to you. You've told us very much a lot about what Stellenbosch does in other parts of the world. You are a founding member of Arua. In what way do you think other Arua universities can learn from the Stellenbosch experience, your networking experience, which has brought you huge resources that most of us envy?
Thank you, Chairperson. I think the first point I can highlight, networks like Arua, there is a lot of VCs on board here. Each and every university has got a very unique area of research that we in South Africa, as an example, don't really have the context of what Makerere is doing. Then the next step is the two VCs sit around the table, and then from there it filters down to the DVC's research, and then that's where we find each other. And that is why you see Stellenbosch playing a role in many aspects. It's largely because we learn from different partners. I made reference of Sweden. We met with the colleagues in a different conference. And then out of that, you do a one-to-one discussion, and then you identify areas of research that are of common interest to both of you. And in that way, that's where you also build capacity within the subject fields that you're probably not offering in your own space. The other part is that we try as far as possible with grant writing. Our researchers in most of these centers that we set up in Stellenbosch, they come from the funders outside Stellenbosch. And then in that way, when you learn from your colleagues, there could be an opportunity that is lying somewhere which you were not aware of, and then you can join collectively. And that is why we increase our research publications with these many partners that we have. Let me stop there, Chairperson.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. I think we've covered quite a lot of ground in this 1 hour. I need some guidance from is there, want us to ask questions from the audience? Very good. Are there any questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Vicent from the University of Cape Town. I'm attached at the only Center of Research in Engineering Education. And I'm one of the beneficiaries for capacity building for engineering education, which is a grant funded by EU. And Professor Erani from Pretoria University is the one in charge of this grant. And one of the benefits of this grant is to build capacity in Africa, and especially mobility, because the panel discussed about mobility in Africa, and it is quite interesting that the rest of the globe is seeing Africa as the continent of the future. So we need to build capacity, and this Center of Research in Engineering Education at UCT is doing quite an interesting job. And we are also have the first PhD symposium that is going to happen at Pretoria, the Future Africa, which is quite interesting because the panel also discussed about symposiums, which is very, very interesting. So I think Africa is waking up the reality, and we need to be strategic and also be prepared, because if we are seen as the continent of the future, then we also need to be seen as leaders, future leaders. Because now when you look at the global debates, especially AI and the technology transformation, the other day I was listening to the debate about China and USA. They were saying who is leading. So USA was like, we need to now start enrolling AI in our education system right away from the start. And this is what we should be doing. And higher education research should emphasize on how do we improve quality? How do we improve quality, especially the context, like Africa, we have a unique context that we should be working on, because we should not depend on the building capacity and depend on Global North to come and train us, build capacity. This mobility that we are talking about, okay? So if we have our engineers from Uganda, for example, trained here in Uganda, we can have mobility or exchange programs where we can take them throughout the continent and be able to work freely, okay? So this capacity building and mobility is very, very interesting.
Thank you.
I think this is the future. Thank you so much.
We take one comment at the back, and then we come to Professor Palmwosky.
Okay, thank you very much.
Please be brief.
Yes. My name is Josephine from University of Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. And this one is general for Arua. I believe that the role of collaboration is solving similar problems, shared problems, and we have a lot of shared challenges in our universities, in our research and innovation centers. So I was actually concerned about the role that Arua has played, or what is in plan in making sure that when we have similar problems, we don't start finding solutions from scratch. Like you'll find university, maybe University of Dar es Salaam is doing this, and then another university, maybe in South Africa, is doing a similar thing. So instead of starting from scratch, how are you connecting us in knowing that the solution is here? Now let's just customize to our challenge solutions for the similar problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Prof. Palmwosky.
Thank you. I'm Oluyemisi Bamboshe, the Deputy Vice Chancellor in charge of research, University of Ibadan in Nigeria. I want to encourage Arua that the exchange program we had a few years ago, subject to availability of funds, should continue, because it's a lot beneficial to the institutions. I had the opportunity of going to Rhodes University in South Africa, and that really helped our university in terms of ICT. And eventually, the ICT crew from our university had to go to Stellenbosch to go and shadow what they were doing. And it has really enhanced our ICT in the University of Ibadan. And I say thank you to Arua for this. So subject to availability of funds, we should continue this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Chancellor.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is to Dr. Lore. This is the second time that you have assured us that the EU is not going to reduce research funding. At Makerere here, the EU is the biggest fund of research. But I am aware that we had a lot of disruptions when the United States withdrew from research abruptly. With pressure from the US for you to increase defense spending, are you very sure that we are not going to experience another disruption when the EU is forced to spend more money in defense than in research? And we suffered the same fate here.
Thank you very much. I'm going to invite you, ladies and gentlemen, to make your last comment in response to any of the questions or comments that you've heard. You have 1 minute each, and then let me start from Lauren, and then I'll come down. So, Lauren, what to you? 1 minute.
Well, I will address the last question, which was directed to me, about whether the cuts from the US, the current administration, may have an impact in reducing also the funding coming from Europe. Clearly, we are revising our strategy based on the latest announcements, but our decision to increase our funding towards Africa was prior to this. So we are currently not reconsidering this. To the contrary, we want to be seen as a reliable partner, building on the long-term cooperation. And obviously, we're not able to take all the unmet previous commitment by the US government. I mean, those were made by the US government. We're looking case by case, whether we can partly chip in, depending on whether we were working together with the US, for instance, as in the area of health, for instance. But I think you need to be reassured that the EU is there to stay as a partner. And the decision by the US only affects what US is doing in Africa. You need to reflect on that in terms of choosing your partners for the long term. We want to show and commit, and this will be, I think, stressed at the summit next month in Rwanda, where the EU will come in big numbers with a lot of presidents of states, in addition to the Commission, to reaffirm that our partnership, EU-AU, is there to stay and to increase. I hope I can. I just want to also react to some of the comment about the importance of strengthening the network in Africa. And that's what ARUA is about, building on the research-intensive universities in Africa. I think this is very important, very good. We're very happy about the partnership with the Guild, because that opens a door for establishing solid partnership with European universities. And most of our funding, the big funding we provide, are large consortia. So this is a very good instrument for identifying, developing those proposals where we are going to put funding. And this funding is not just for individual universities to work with Europe, but this contributes as well to the strengthening of the continental cooperation between the different players that participate in the project from the African side. So this is not the initial goal, but it is certainly a side effect on strengthening the African cooperation as ARUA is trying to develop. Thank you.
Peter?
An observation on the question about how you don't duplicate what's been done already and how you find a collaborator who will be useful to you. This actually is a real challenge within networks, and it has to be addressed explicitly. We do it in WN through an organization we call the Hub, where researchers in a member university, a researcher who wants to work on a particular problem, but would like to engage a larger context across the network, will simply broadcast what they're interested in and invite collaborations about a potential embryonic project. Likewise, people who are seeking collaborations on a topic but aren't yet ready to launch a project can put requests in the same way. I think it's a big challenge, but manageable.
Thank you. John?
Yes, let me pick up by just identifying three big challenges, I think, for all of us. So the first one is when you're in networks, how do you ensure that what you do as a network filters through into the entire institution so that it doesn't just stay with those that you're working with in a working group, but it reaches across. And there, I think we in the Guild and ARUA still, and in our institutions, still have a lot of homework to do in terms of how we connect our researchers to the research offices, to other administrative supports, staff, and beyond the institutions, so that we can really even more maximize the kind of things that Laurent was talking about. And we're in that process. It's natural, this just takes time, but we really have to keep our focus. Second, on mobility, I think this is where all of us as networks need to be countercultural. So I think as governments try to emphasize the importance of brain gain, of attracting the best to their own countries. It's also natural for universities to want to attract the best talent. We have to really put an emphasis on saying that brain circulation is in all of our long-term interests, and we've done that in the Guild. For instance, we, I think, are pretty much the only network that have released a paper in response to the EU's approach to Choose Europe, where we've said actually the way to benefit from what's going on in the US is, or the way to respond is not by trying to attract the best researchers from the US, but to stabilize and support a global research system. And finally, I think, and this is something similar holds for how we embrace shared research problems. Again, as countries really focus on their own advantage increasingly. AI is a great example. Every country develops its own AI strategy. But in Europe, in Africa, we are too small in our member states to compete against the Googles, the Amazons. So we have to work together. And I think it's really important for networks to constantly bring that up the wider agenda and make that more visible.
Thank you. Sam?
Thank you, sir. I think I would believe that I'm a gentleman from ARUA, SG. Let me just put one or two words in your mouth without your consent. Right. At ARUA, there is two meetings, one for the vice chancellors, the strategic meeting. The second one is for the DVC's research. That's where we compare the notes from the member universities. As an example, the last meeting we attended, there was an issue that came up around the Water Institute at Rhodes University. Stellenbosch, we have the same Water Institute. Then what we did, as he indicated, we basically connected the researchers together. We basically tried to avoid through ARUA this duplication of efforts so that we add our little resources that we have collectively to make an impact. The SG is nodding and the former SG is nodding. Capacity building. I think we cannot overemphasize the fact that we've got an aging professoriate. And then we need the next generation of academics. We need to do more in terms of making sure that we capacitate the youngsters that are coming and entering the career in academia. It is a worry because the aging group are going, and then part of the challenges that you find is they also live with the network that they have. And hence capacity building becomes very key for us to still remain relevant going into the future. And these are the aging, and they are very productive. And the question is, how do they impart the knowledge to the new generation? That's where capacity building becomes extremely important. I think, let me stop there. I think the question around the ICT, as I indicated earlier on, Stellenbosch is there to help any brother or sister that knocks on our door. But I indicated that, but just be careful, we don't have a gate where you're going to enter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Jenny?
Oh, thank you. I think that we've heard that, networks have got a role to play in terms of brokering access, assisting with finding funding. I think there are there are things that we can do. Of course, then it's over to our individual members to take up the mantle and initiate various relationships. But I think that I'm very optimistic about the future. I think for our network, it's around the focus on sharing best practice, capacity building, and those sorts of things which don't necessarily rely on huge amounts of funding which we don't have access to.
Thank you very, very much. We have been fortunate today to have a panel that cuts across different sets of stakeholders. So Lauren has represented a funding agency that has huge expectations in terms of how we respond to the resources that they make available as networks. We've had the experience from Jean from the Guild. It came into partnership with Arua, also with their own expectations, and Arua had its expectations. Today, we've had a chance to listen to whether these expectations are being met or not, and how we can strengthen them. The Worldwide Universities Network comes again into this partnership with their own requirements, their own demands, and their own outlook on things. We've heard from Peter in terms of what he thinks or they think will make this even better in the future, how we take advantage of the strengths of these institutions to build on the partnership that is going to lead to the outcomes that we all crave for. Jenny shared with us the experience of U21. They are not as well-resourced as other networks, but in their own small way, have worked with Arua to build the partnerships around early career researchers, and we've seen how this has grown over time. And then finally, we've heard from Sam on the experience of Stellenbosch University. I pushed him to tell us what he thinks others could learn from that experience, and clearly they've been willing to sit down with others, whether at DVC's meetings or the Vice Chancellor's meetings, to share experiences is one of the things that we can all look forward to. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've come to the end of this roundtable, where we've learned a lot, and we've also put on the table our fears and our worries, and hopefully in the coming year, we will be able, as Arua, to resolve as many of these as we can. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Yes, thank you so much, Professor.